As with last time, I've just set the camera up and set it recording to just capture what I'm doing with the wiring loom. The first part of this wiring loom was a lot more simple. It was just a case of stripping off a load of the insulation and wire coverings just to be able to see what's going on. So then I had to get the wiring diagram out and start going pin to pin again, as I did previously with the magnifying glass there, because my eyesight's getting worse. Should have put my glasses on really, but same as before, just going through the wiring, checking pin to pin, and then I was able to verify it afterwards. Right, finally. Finally. I've been working on part 2 of the wiring loom, as hopefully you've seen. So I've got it all plugged in down here. So what I'll do is I'll just show you what's going on with it. So the wiring's all a bit of a mess. These are all the 12 volt feeds and the ignition fed lines. That beep was my multimeter. And this is all the earths and stuff. So if I drop that on, we'll have a look at the clocks. We get all the usual ignition lights, and we get this working. That horrible noise is the throttle body for some reason. I don't know why it makes that noise, but I've got the accelerator pedal here. If I just press this, you can see that's working. The alternator, this exhaust pipe's just there so I can connect the oxygen sensor up. The manifold's on the top just so I can connect the oxygen sensor up. The alternator's just dropped there so I can connect that up with that wire running as a earth. Normally it would pick up off be bolted to the engine and provide an earth, but I haven't got that on at the minute, so that's on there. Everything's just kind of loosely thrown together, but it's all connected and it works. So this wire here is what makes the engine crank, but what's more fun than making the engine crank than trying to make it start? Although that's not bolted on, that's not bolted together, and the inlet manifold's not actually bolted to the engine. So I'm going to put the camera down somewhere and spray a bit of brake cleaner in it and see if we can make it run, even if only for a few seconds. So I'll just spray some brake cleaner into the inlet and give it a start. I'm just about to have a tidy up, but before I do, I want to go through some of the diagnostic stuff with you. Let's see, not the ignition on because it's not showing all the lights. What's missing here then? That one. That's the click. It's ignition on, and that should be in there too. Alright, so that's ignition on. What I'm going to do is plug this into the diagnostic port, if I can get it to reach there. I've got my big bundle of wires out. That lot, interestingly, is what I've stripped out of the loom from inside the car that I don't need. It's a lot of wires, isn't it? It's all stuff like entertainment system, heating system, cooling, heating and interior cooling, air conditioning, that sort of thing. Airbag system, ABS system, all sorts of stuff. So plug a diagnostic plug into there, and then my laptop, I've put it away now. The laptop I use for diagnostics, that died on me, so I can't use that. The hard drive's never been secured into the laptop, so when I picked it up to go over to that end of the garage to plug it in, the hard drive fell out, and now it doesn't work. So I've had to quickly install the software on the computer that I've got down here with the screen there. If I was cleverer, I'd record this screen to talk you through what I'm doing, but I'm not that clever. So what I've got, a piece of software, let me see if you can see this piece. It's a bit flickery, I don't know if there's a lot I can do about that. It's an old, pretty old screen. Software I've got is called Opcom. A Chinese software thing I got off eBay a long time ago. So we can go into diagnostics. It's a 2004 Zafira. Let's have a look at the engine, Z16XE. Yeah, I need to do something with the driver first. Let's quit this. Tell you what, I'll bring you back in a minute when I've sorted this out. It doesn't work very well with Windows 10, so there's a bit of faffing about I have to do. Be back in a minute. Right, now hopefully we can go into Opcom and it should work. Fingers crossed. Diagnostics. It's a bit slow. 2004 Zafira. Engine Z16XE. There we go, we're connected. Right, so that's good news. Now we're going to have a look at fault codes. I expect, having just ran it, albeit briefly, on brake cleaner and not fuel, we're going to see some fault codes here. Look at all those. Limpo electronic throttle control forced. AC refrigerant pressure sensor. Main relay stuck open. Main relay stuck closed. So none of those are present. They've come on at some point. I think some of them are to do with the fact that I'm connecting and disconnecting the permanent live and the ignition live all at the same time. So it's not going to help, is it really? See, I've cleared those fault codes and refresh it, and there's nothing present at the moment. And I've been faffing about with that throttle pedal signal, haven't I? So yeah, that's that. We're gonna. I want to. There's a couple of things I want to look at. Yeah, so you can see it's communicating with it. It's got the VIN number of the car in the ECU that it came out of, and all the information that that it needs. So it's yeah, it's all communicating and the wiring loom works. Now I'm going to have a little bit of time faffing about with something on here, but I just wanted to, after I've done this, go through a little bit of the wiring. So one question one of my friends asked me about this wiring loom was, well, he didn't really ask a question, he said to me that wiring scares him, he's terrified of it. And I don't find it difficult. If you've got a decent wiring diagram, then it's not too difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the steps that I took to verify this wiring loom that I've got. Now, with the instrument cluster and the bits inside the car, the instrument cluster and the immobiliser unit, I've got this wiring diagram from the internet. I googled Zafira wiring diagram, found this, and it's very good. So I start off looking on here for the instrument cluster, and you can see there that is diagram number 9. So if we scroll down, in the bottom corner of each first page you've got a number, so that number 1, that's the key, and that's a wiring diagram. So we'll go down to number 9. You'll have to excuse me not looking at the camera, I'm looking at the computer screen. So that's the key of everything that's on this instrument cluster wiring diagram. So you can see there, it's coming into view, this is the instrument cluster wiring diagram. Now, it seems a scary thing, but if you look at the plug on any of these components, each pin has a number. It will say number 1 at one end and it will go across. So on the instrument cluster it's got a total of 36 pins, so it's 18 across one way and 18 across the bottom, and that starts number 1 through to 18, then 19 through to 36. So what I did was going through each pin on the instrument cluster, starting at number 1, I'd look at what the wire was and where it went. So on here you can see on this diagram just here, number 1, so that's pin number 1, the very first one, BKBU, which is a black and blue wire, and I can see that that goes up to there, which is, I can't read that from here, NSL or something along those lines. So we can have a look at the key anyway, and have a look at NSL, fog lamps rear, and that's something I'm not interested in the Mini, so I was able to just cut that wire and or remove the pin, and that's quite straightforward. Now there's some other wires that, like this one, pin 20, number 20, coming out of the instrument cluster with a green wire, comes down here, goes to a module I'm not interested in, but this one goes to Z16XE, so that's the engine, that's what that means, and that number 1233 is key to remember. So we go to the engine, which I already know is 12 and 13. We'll start with number 12, and we look along this bottom line here, it's like coordinates. So we've got 12, 30, 31, 32, 33, so we should see up here, if we follow that up, we should come across a green wire, there it is, green wire, that we know goes to the instrument cluster. That's INS there as the instrument cluster, and that's a green wire. So we know that pin 20 or whatever it was we were at before goes to this pin, which we need to zoom in a little bit, too much perhaps. Pin 20 it was. We went right back to the wiring diagram we were on. 20 goes to pin, is that 45? 46, pin 46 on the engine control module. And basically you just have to go through every single one like that, one wire at a time. So the engine module, this is the engine control module. There's two plugs on the engine module, X71 and X72. There's a load of X71 there, X71 there, and that's the one I was working on that I was interested in. Then you go down to diagram 13, there is a small section of X71 there too. So basically for each plug that I've got on that loom I've made, I went through pin by pin following this diagram to see where each wire went to make sure it connected to the correct space. Now, there's a lot of wires that come from this here that says STA, which is from the starting circuit, and they're ignition feeds and they're all black wires. There's also a lot of wires like this one that just go down to the bottom They've got a number, they're earth points. They go to they're negatives that go to the body of the car, and they're all brown wire. And then we've got a lot of wires that come through fuses, for example this one, which are red wires. So as a general, it doesn't work out all the time, but as a general rule of thumb, 12 volt permanent lives are red, ignition fed lives are black, and negatives or earths are brown. So when you can understand the wiring diagram like that, you can see the pin designations for each section. Each wire's got a pin number, so you can check that, and then it's got a colour code, so you can check that. And if you know that information, you can follow the wire throughout the diagram. For me, I find that all quite simple and straightforward. Not everybody does, admittedly, but I find it quite straightforward, and I quite enjoy it. I've put about 13 hours into this wiring diagram. I've sat at the bench in the garage for quite a number of evenings, just picking through it and getting it right, and as we've seen today, it all works. It connects to the engine. I can crank it and start it. I can read all the engine data with a laptop plugged into the diagnostic socket. I can see live data from the instrument cluster and the immobiliser unit as well. And I've verified the immobiliser unit works too. So all in all, I'm quite happy with that wiring loom. It's not fully wrapped and fully complete because there's wires that I can't connect until it's in the car. So I've got to make a decision whether to use the Zafira Speedo or the Mini Speedo. So at the moment I've got wires disconnected for the indicator lights, for the illumination and the main beam light. If I use the Zafira Speedo, I can connect all of those into the Mini's wiring, so those elements work correctly on the Zafira Speedo. If I don't use the Zafira Speedo, I haven't got to worry about connecting those. I need to connect oil pressure, battery light and malfunction indicator light, and then that's it really. So I can't finish the loom until it's in the car and the engine's in the car. So the next video, although it's not going to be next week, I'm going to have to have a little bit of a break because I've started making the subframe, but it's got a long way off yet, and I'm not going to get a chance to work on it this weekend. So we'll hopefully I'll be able to work on it the following weekend, and there'll be a video in a couple of weeks for you to see about that. But thanks for watching this one. I'm sorry this section's been a bit poor quality video wise because I'm using a Microsoft Kinect thing hooked up to the computer. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again very soon.